Alright, let's go from an awful Michael Keaton movie to an excellent Michael Keaton movie. That's right, we're talking Batman 89.
Hello, popcorn delivery.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
I've talked about this movie a lot, and if I recall my second, I think it was my second review ever, was about the sequence where Jack Nicholson comes into the museum and Party Man starts playing. It's just such a fascinating, well-executed sequence. I don't think there's ever been a more interesting villain sequence than Jack Nicholson's Joker going around the art museum and splotching everything with red and green. It's just a great movie. But I don't think I've ever reviewed this movie as a whole, so I think it's high time I gave this movie the review it deserves. This is the best Batman movie. If you think The Dark Knight is better just because it's all edgy and gritty, you're a moron. And if you think the Adam West version is better because it's more true to the comics, you're just wrong about that. The Adam West show has nothing to do with the comics. This movie is the most like the comics here. This movie balances things out. It's not entirely gritty, it's not entirely silly. And Batman, by necessity, needs to balance those two even, you know. But yeah, if you think The Dark Knight is better, like Heath Ledger is a better Joker than Jack Nicholson, give me some of what you're smoking, because I don't think you have any idea about what makes a good Joker. I think mainly the only reason everyone likes Heath Ledger's Joker is because he's dead, and Jack Nicholson isn't dead, but if you don't like Jack Nicholson, you know, you don't know what good acting is like. Just to think that this movie was so big and beloved when it came out and got all the praise it rightfully deserved, and then Christopher Nolan swoops in with his freaking Dark Knight. Oh shit, it's Christian Bale. Oh shit, and he just steals the glory away from this film. But on the back it says spectacular entertainment from Jack Garner at the Gannett News Service. The movie of the decade, Eric Premier, KGO-TV San Francisco. I wouldn't exactly agree with that. The 1980s are a notoriously good decade for film, but I would say it is one of the best films of the 1980s. And then you've got Peter Travers from Rolling Stone, a triumph. You can't take your eyes off it. So, obviously this film was very well liked when it came out, and there are a lot of reasons for that. This is a good movie. This is the greatest adaptation of Batman that's ever happened. And honestly, I'm not sure exactly how this movie is so good, because Batman comics were pretty much dead by the 60s, 70s, 80s. You've got all these awful shit storylines like the Laughing Fish and the Joker's Six-Way Revenge or whatever, the Joker's Threesome or whatever, but because Bob Kane and Bill Finger were dead by then, and, the people who drew Batman and knew what Batman is supposed to be were dead, and so all the comics of the 70s and 80s are like just the hottest trash. But this movie is really good, and maybe it's just that, it's a movie and it's not confined by the continuity of the comics, which by this time are like a pool of vomit coagulating and all messy and tangled, and you got Nightfall, and you got A Death in the Family, and you got all this garbage, all this hot, gimmicky trash. But this movie takes Batman right back down to his roots. Now, in many ways, this movie is part of the 80s wave of nostalgia. You got Back to the Future, set in the 50s. You also have that Dick Tracy film with Warren Beatty and Madonna. Very underrated film, which I'd say in many ways is like a counterpart to this one. All of a sudden, everyone was all over the old superheroes again. And I'd say this movement starts, of course, with the 70s Superman film, which is just, very obviously trying to cash in on this well-beloved character that by the 70s, everyone knew who Superman was, so it was ripe for him to make a return. And the Superman movie is pretty good. It's pretty well executed. I don't exactly buy Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, but Margot Kidder's a nice Lois Lane. But Batman will always be my favorite. Just because Batman's a cooler superhero. Like, who are we kidding? He's a lot cooler than Superman. And I like Superman, but for me, this film has a lot more style than the Superman movie. It has a lot more flair, a lot more panache, a lot more personality. And it would have been interesting to see the 1970s Superman and the 1980s Batman, in a crossover, but we never got that. We never got a good Justice League with good actors. Instead, we got it with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck. Oh shit, the Snyder Cut just got released? I gotta get my hands on that Snyder Cut. Oh shit, I bet the movie will be a lot better directed by Zack Snyder, am I right? Snyder Cut. But in all honesty, I don't give a shit about the Snyder Cut. I don't respect Zack Snyder as a director. This is one of the few movies that's an absolute perfect storm of a film. You've got Tim Burton directing, and obviously his style is so well suited for Batman. I mean, you've got this nice gothic, dark, grim superhero with this twisted mind, and you've got this crazy clown villain, and Gotham City just looks so good in this movie. The set design on this film approaches a level of excellence I rarely see. Like, you can always shoot somewhere, but to shoot a fictional location and have it look this good and this realistic is absolutely amazing. Like, the set work on this is almost as good as, like, the set work on Blade Runner or something. Gotham City comes alive in this. And, you've got, like, the Adam West show. Gotham City is just all false fronts and backdrops, and it looks fake as hell. And then you've got the Dark Knight, where they just shoot on a street in New York or something. But Gotham City isn't New York, so you can't really shoot in New York and call it Gotham City. You've got to make Gotham City, and this movie does that. I don't feel like I'm in New York in this movie. I don't feel like I'm in some 70s town like I do in the Joker movie. Like, I like the Joker movie, but the Gotham it presents is not this Gotham. This Gotham City in this movie is Gotham City. It is a city on its own. It's its own thing. It's not New York, it's not Pittsburgh, it's not any other random shooting location they got. This is Gotham City. And the opening scene where you've got these parents walking into an alley with their kid, and first you think it's Bruce Wayne and his parents, but it's actually not. It's a completely different set of parents and their kid, and that's actually really clever. But, like, they're just walking around the streets of Gotham, and, like, there's just great Matte paintings in the back. And God, like, all these miniatures, and you got the theater and all these street lights, and the traffic looks so good. Like, it doesn't even look like a set. It looks like the traffic is going through. It looks like a busy, dark, bustling, just hella freaking spooky city. And I really like that. This movie knows Gotham City. It knows what's up. Man, oh man. Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton is great as Batman. And you might not think he is, because he's kind of a small guy. But once he gets on that Batman suit, you forget he's a little twig, You forget he's a little short. He's a little short stack. He's, he really fills those boots. And I like how when he says, I'm Batman, he just says it kind of like, I'm Batman. And
Batman.
not like, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
That frickin' Christian Bale throat cancer voice. Holy shit, can we get that out of here? Batman doesn't talk like, I'm Batman. He talks with like a normal voice, because he wants to intimidate criminals, and if he talked like, they just laugh at him, so. Michael Keaton is obviously the best Batman. And maybe there could have been a better Batman, like, I don't know exactly who it would be, but there could be a better Batman. It's not Adam West, it's not Christian Bale. There are a few actors that come to mind that might have made a better Batman, but Keaton, I'm not whining. Keaton's an okay Batman. and you really feel that, you know, the conflict between him and Bruce Wayne, and how, you know, they're two, you know, he's kind of going a little ape shit over his split personality and his identity crisis, and it's just great. It's such a nuanced portrayal from Keaton. Now, of course, Kim Basinger plays Vicky Vale, who I believe is in the original comics, and this is the only time she's ever shown up in a film. She's not in the sequel, she's not in any other Batman movie, but she's a good character, and I think it was very smart of them to add her in here. You know, some might say she's too much like Lois Lane, but, you know, she's really not. She's a blonde, and she's an entirely different character, and it's very interesting. And it's nice to see a love interest for Batman that isn't Catwoman for once, you know. Vicky Vale's a nice character. I wish half the movies were more faithful to the comics, but this seems to be the only movie that gives a shit. And Kim Basinger's really good. And she's in a lot of scenes, so I should keep that in mind. I don't know. She's just kind of a supporting character in the comics. Supporting cast, Billy D. Williams as the Joker's crazy henchman, and Jack Palance. And Jack Palance is only in like 2 scenes, but they're really good. And, you know, classic Palance, right? Gotta love that Jack Palance that he brings to the table. And you got Jack Nicholson playing a character called Jack Napier, so there's a lot of Jacks in this movie. Just by gosh, you know, this is primo entertainment right here. Like I said, it is one of the most perfect renditions that ever could have happened. Tim Burton has his great sense of style. Nicholson is just wacky and goofy, and he's such a good Joker. He just makes you want to freaking, you know, he's so charismatic, and you know, you can see why the people of Gotham think the Joker is nice, because, you know, he's a lot more fun in many ways. You know, he prances around, and it's just fun. Nicholson's great. And of course, the other factor to this perfect storm of a film is the soundtrack by Prince, which is just such a jam. Just such a solid jam. Like some of the songs, like Wings of Orion and whatever, man, you know, yeah. But, you know, I mean, I suppose they're more for the sentimental Prince fans who like his softer songs, but, like, some of the peppiest shit Prince ever made, like you got Party Man, and Trust, and Electric Chair, and then you have Bat Dance, which is just this really bizarre audio sampling mix that you'll just have to hear it to believe it, but I mean, Bat Dance is okay. But I gotta say, my favorite off the soundtrack is definitely Party Man, just because it'll always be linked with the image of Jack Nicholson's Joker pushing open those gallery doors and saying, "Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds."
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
And it's just so good. And the Smilex commercial bit is great. Now, of course, as everyone knows, the Batman franchise was permanently derailed with Batman 3, Batman Forever, where Joel Schumacher and Tim Burton co-direct, and then in Batman and Robin, it's all Joel Schumacher. I don't hate Batman and Robin. It's not that bad. There are worse Batman movies, like The Dark Knight, which is just a steaming pile of dog shit. Like, at least Batman and Robin has, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger and shit. But Batman and Robin is not as good as this. Tim Burton is the ultimate director. And furthermore, in this movie, Harvey Dent is a black guy. But then in Batman 3, which is supposed to take place in the same universe, even though now Batman is Val Kilmer for some reason, Harvey Dent's white. And I don't think in Batman 3 it's ever even mentioned that Two-Face was Harvey Dent, and, you know, he got his face stung with acid, and he feels angry at Bruce Wayne, who used to be his friend, and, you know, because that's kind of the whole point of Two-Face, but Batman 3 just kind of reduces him to a cartoon. So yeah, I will say that's a little weird. and it kind of sucks. But I think if Tim Burton had kept the series going, then in Batman 3, Two-Face might have been black, and that would have been pretty interesting and cool. When you see a black Two-Face. Like, Tommy Lee Jones, I do like him. I like him in Men in Black. His portrayal of the Two-Face might be the best part of that movie, if there is any redeeming qualities of Batman 3. I definitely don't like Jim Carrey's Riddler very much. But it's very interesting to see Harvey Dent in this movie, and he doesn't get splashed by acid or anything. He just stays Harvey Dent for the whole time. And you think, like, when's he gonna turn into Two-Face? But he just doesn't. He just stays the district attorney. And so that's kind of weird. There's more Harvey Dent in this movie than there is, like, Commissioner Gordon. I think Commissioner Gordon's, like, in one scene at the acid factory, but Harvey Dent's in, like, a lot of it. And that's not really his job. He's only the district attorney, not the police commissioner, so. But I do like how this film tosses out all the unnecessary side characters. Frickin' Aunt Harriet and frickin' Chief O'Hara from the 60s show are just tossed right out the window because no one gave a shit about them. And they weren't even in the comics. That's really great. This movie breathes new life into the Batman franchise. And it takes a character which everyone thought was long gone because the 60s show made a mockery of the Cape Crusader and says, look, he still has some potential. Let's bring him into the 80s and make him look. And I must admit, this film, it's set in Gotham City in the 80s, but there's a lot of trench coats, a lot of fedoras, a lot of noir stuff, which I definitely appreciate. But it definitely feels like Gotham just happens to have a kind of 40s style, but it is the 80s, if that makes any sort of sense.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Cue music.
The fashion choices aren't really all that anachronistic. This movie does a good job of bringing Batman into the 80s. Now, if Tim Burton had kept working with DC, as most people know, he would have directed a Superman movie based on the terrible Death of Superman comic, where Nick Cage plays Superman. And that would have resulted in some great memes, but I really don't think Nick Cage is much of a Superman. If that makes any sense, he's kind of small. He's kind of thin, but that's why he works perfect for someone like Ghost Rider, who's just a skeleton, that makes a lot of sense, but, he's just skin and bones, and Ghost Rider is just bones, so, that kind of works out. But like I said, Michael Keaton is also thin, and they do some, they give him some platform shoes, and the costume has a lot of muscles built into it, so he looks bigger than he actually is. So maybe they would have done the same thing for Nick Cage. I don't know. I'm glad that didn't pan out. It would have been really dumb, and also Tim Burton's style doesn't work with Superman. But Tim Burton's style does work with Batman. 100%, there's no better director to direct a Batman film. And what's more, this was actually my first exposure to the character. This was the first time I saw Batman on film. Heck, I didn't even own any Batman comic books at the time. And I'm glad I didn't, because all the modern ones are trash and all the regular ones are really expensive. Yeah, this is my first exposure to Batman. I saw this before I saw Batman 3. I saw this before I saw The Dark Knight. I saw this before I ever saw the 60s show. And thank gosh this was my first exposure to Batman, because this is the only way to experience the character unless you want to go buy an omnibus of the comics from about 1940 to 1955. You're not going to get a better Batman experience than this. But yeah, just to think that someone could think that, The Dark Knight is better than this, it just baffles my mind and makes my brain hurt. And anyone who says that probably just hasn't seen this and probably just doesn't know how good it is. And to that, I gotta say, patooey. You're really missing out if you don't watch this glorious spectacle. This is one of the few things, for all I shit on DC Comics, and, I think they're absolutely garbage, but, this was back in the 80s. Their movies are complete trash now, but I'd say this is the last time anyone was ever like, man, DC Comics, what a respectable, primo institution dedicated to creating the finest superhero adventures anywhere. This is a good, well-composed, well-structured movie. And for that, I give it 5 stars, because there is no better Batman film than this right here. Even the sequel, I like Batman Returns. It's okay. Michael Keaton's in it, but it just feels lacking without Joker. Joker's the ultimate nemesis, the ultimate foil, and he's just so epic. And if you like Heath Ledger more, I don't know what's wrong with you or what your deal is, or if you have some kind of weird fetish for dead celebrities, but I guess once Jack Nicholson dies, maybe people will respect this role a little more and understand that he's the best Joker. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, alright? But, yeah, Batman, Nicholson, Keaton, they're on the spine there. Excellent co-stars, excellent antagonist and protagonist, all around excellent movie, and man oh man, do those Prince songs from this still slap. But yeah, that said, this has been a VHS Crazy review of Batman 1989. And if you'd like to see more reviews like this in the future, then write to Nicholas Acada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado 80206 for a full catalog of all the Nicholas comics we got. Currently, Denver is going through a cold snap, and it's about 5 degrees, so I'd really appreciate if I could wake up sometime, go out to the mailbox, check it, and see some fan mail and some appreciation, because right now I'm stuck in here. Even more stuck than I already am with all this pandemic stuff going on. I can't even walk out the door without 5 layers of coats. So yeah, that said, it has been a review, VHS Crazy, and I will see you in the next VHS Crazy. Sayonara, suckers.